Hi everyone, and welcome to the penultimate video in this series where we're going to be looking at building Dragon's 1/35th scale M3A1 half track. As you can see from this short video, all of the acrylic work has finally been done. So if this is something that's of interest to you, then pull up a chair, grab a brew, and let's go do some modeling. So, as you know, for those of you that follow my builds, you'll know that I enjoy putting a lot of colour into my builds, and this was no exception with over 50 colours being used. First of all, the motorbike, we'll do a quick catch up on this using Mr. Surfacer Black Primer. We put down an initial coat, and then using some Mr. Hobby Aquarius burnt iron. We laid down another coat, which was then topped off with some Vallejo UK olive drab. Once I'd laid down some hairspray, and then it was just a matter of just doing a little bit of hairspray chipping just to add a bit of interest. Then I did a bit of detail painting with the whites, some metallics for the engine parts. A little bit fiddly, but quite frankly, wasn't a major issue. And I was quite pleased with how it all turned out. And then it was just a matter of adding on the decals. The K-ration decals on the boxes came out really well. Very pleased with that. And there was a couple of little insignias on the German helmet as well. The grenades, they were given a little bit of a coat of green just to add some interest. This was the basic start of the wheels, and then with the whitewash added and the chains painted up as well, they were coming on really well. The actual chains themselves were given a wash of rust on top of the steel base. The tracks themselves, they had a little bit of rust because these were the metal parts that went through the actual tracks themselves. And in this occasion, rather than using dark rubber like I had on the wheels, I actually used black for the tracks. The seats, they were given an initial light coat of light mud and then washed with green. Various colours were used for the fuel cans, and I made a good go of the actual rifles themselves and the guns. Very pleased with how they turned out, with the base coat of light brown, and then given washes of burnt umber and smoke, along with a little bit of wood grading with German cam brown, and then obviously the steel effects with metallics from Vallejo. Added some decals onto the 30mm cal ammo boxes. Really pleased with how they came out. They were from Echelon, and with the other side of the boxes, they were just dry brushed with the yellow just to bring out the highlighted raised lettering from the Panzer resin boxes. The little packs from Value Gear, they had various colours. All three helmets were done in a different colour just to add on a bit of interest. And I was really pleased with how the stowage was going. Please remember, all of the acrylic work is just base work. There will be further work done with the oils further on, which we'll go into more detail on the next video. And as you can see with the bags, it was just a matter of mixing and matching different colours, from the khakis to the browns to the greens, just to give a bit of difference throughout the whole of the build, to add that wonderful contrast. So there's lots of interest of colour in the build itself. And finally, with this helmet, I decided to go for the white look. I was really pleased with how that one turned out. All of the stowage was given a bit of a wash, just to bring out some of the detail. The guns themselves, they were just given a basic metallic covering and then given a wash of black, and then just given the bases some highlights with dark Russian green. And then there was a little bit of detail with some of the wooden handles as well. But again, most of the work will be done during the oil stages. The boots, they were just done with red leather, black soles, and then the webbing was done with US Tank Crew from Vallejo. We're really pleased with how that they were looking. And the gun's very small. The straps again, that they were done in beige. And there's a few little close-ups of how they were looking. And this is what's taken most of the time, all of this small detail painting. But I'm sure it'd be worth it in the end. We got some marker poles. They were obviously done in white first and then taped off and done with basic red. The wheels, the rear wheels, they were given chipping as well with the white. And now we come on to the actual stowage itself. Obviously, they were, as you remember from the other videos, primed in black. I then did a dry brush of white primer over them as well, just to create an initial shadow look. I started off doing the wood. I had 4 base coats for the wooden crates, and with the wood frame at the back as well. The red stripe, that's on the 50 cal ammo box. So that was 2 areas of wood at the back and 2 areas of wood at the front. I like to go for the contrast of light at the top and dark at the bottom. So once that's been done, we then add on a burnt umber wash, just very lightly going over all the areas of the wood effects. And you can be as light or as heavy as you wish to with the wash, and the Vallejo paints are thinned down using just water. You'll also notice that I don't mask off any areas because it is acrylic paint that can very easily be wiped off and cleaned off if needed. So that's all the wooden areas with the burnt umber wash. Next, we're going to start adding on a little bit of dark grime, and we're changing our brush to a nice thin one. Again, getting yourself a nice thin wash. We're just going to go into all of the panel lines, all of the seam lines, and there you can see using the capillary action. You don't have to be too exact here. Everything's going to get blended in at the end, so you can be a little bit messy. And again, that does add a little bit of character to it. So just going around the straps as well as the planks as well, just to give that a little bit of extra definition. And there you can see the effects on the rear as well. Really pleased with how this has all started to come together. So in between each stage, you need to get your hair dry it all off. And then the next stage is to use Iraqi sand from Vallejo. Again, this time we're not going to be using any sort of thinner. We really want this to go on fairly thick. And what we're going to be doing here is sort of doing a little bit of dry brushing. Try and catch all of those raised areas, the edges, and just to sort of add a bit of lighting. Since we've been using a couple of dark colors, we now want to light everything up a little bit. And as you can see, we're just going for an older, thicker brush where the bristles are all splayed, which gives that better dried brush effect. I was really pleased with how that had all turned out. So again, we're going to use another light color here. We're going to be using dark sand, and this time we're changing brushes back again. And now we want to be a little bit more exact. We want to be kissing those edges, putting a little bit of wood grain effect, and just lighting up all of those raised areas. And there we go. Just have a quick look around the other areas after this process. And again, it's all coming along really nicely. These are standard stages that I use on all of my work when I do wood. Now we're just adding in a bit of detailing here, using some dark greys and blacks just to highlight the riveted areas. And then finally, we're going to be using a light wash of smoke, and this basically will blend everything in together and bring it all into a nice, dirty, used look on the wood. But again, please remember, there's still a long way to go as there will be further work done using the oils later. And then finally, once that's all done, then it's a matter of just adding some color to the straps. This is one of the boxes that's going inside. This just gives you an idea of what it looks like once all fully dry. And then we made a start on doing all of the similar processes with the stowage themselves. Try to mix up the basic colors of brown, greens and beiges. You can also see I've mixed up the colors on the straps as well, with some light straps and some darker ones. And the back came out really well. Some of the belts were brass buckles, some have steel buckles, and we have a couple of the jerry cans and the 30 cal boxes in the back there as well. And then on the side, there's a shovel in there and also a steel stake. I was really pleased with how all of that looked. So what I want to do now is I've left off the other side with the stowage, and I'll just go through the simple steps on how I paint stowage. Because, as I've already said, most of my work's done with the oils. I just go for the basic three-tone system of painting stowage. I'll just put down a base coat, and then I do a dark wash, and then on top of that, I'll just do a dry brush of a lighter colour, and then just put in any sort of detailing like the straps and buckles, etc. These are the more close-up pictures of the stowage that was already done, so you can have a look in a bit more detail. So let's have a look on this side first. So we're going to be using different size brushes for the detail painting, for the majority of the work there, with the rosemary rounds, and then a bigger brush for the dry brushing at the end. Some paper towels. Just use water for thinner. This is just Vallejo acrylics, and then we'll use a palette there. So for the bottom, we're going for pale green, and for the top, we're going to be going for cam pale brown. These are the base coats, so we want to get it fairly thin, not like a very light wash, but sort of in between the two. Now, what's going to happen is that we're going to lay down an initial coat. No need to go too thick on this. And what will happen is once that's dried, you'll find that there are still areas that need touching up, and then you can go over with a second coat. Very rarely do I have to do a third coat because obviously it's been dry brushed with the white. If you decide to go with just a black primer, then you may find you're having to do more coats. So with the first coat down, as you can see, I'm just touching up certain areas just to give that complete coverage. And again, in between the coats, I use the hairdryer just to dry it all off. Do not put it on a high heat, otherwise you find all your plastic and bits start melting. So just keep it on the low heat, keep the hairdryer moving, and it doesn't take long before it dries out. So the same process was used for the top bit of stowage. Now, I don't know about you, but sometimes I do suffer from shaky hand syndrome. So I keep hold of the wrist, and that's all propped up against the side of the bench, and that's how I managed to get all the tight detailing done. So now we're going to use a dark green wash and also some German cam brown. So first off, what I'm going to be doing is having a pot of splodge of paint where I have some of it watered right down and some of it just like ink. So the ink part, I will go in and paint all of the recesses, all the shadow areas. Now before that dries, so you have to be fairly quick, I will then add on the lighter wash consistency of the dark green, and that then blends that work in together. And then it's just a matter of going around doing each individual area, and eventually you get a nice shadow effect all over the stowage. Also, you can let this wash part go into the join between the vehicle and the stowage, and that gives you a nice dark line. I know some guys like to do black line painting, but I'm quite happy just to use the darker shade. And on the top was the Germ Can Black, and that the same process was used on the brown. Now again, once that's all been hair dried off, we're now going to do some lighting effects. So khaki on the bottom, dry brushed, and the Iraqi sand dry brushed on the brown one. So load up your brush, and then using the paper towel, take off all of the excess. This is the khaki we're doing, and then go in again, add in some more because you want to get it into all of the bristles, and then again take it all off. So there's hardly any on that brush at all. There you go. And then we'll go in and then just start doing some fine brushing. So you'll add on your initial few strokes, and then you just keep going back over the raised areas as much as you want until you get the effect that you like. And there you go, it's starting to come up really well now. Just be very careful not to touch any of those shadow areas. And then the top, as you can see, was done with the Iraqi sand. So once that was all nice and dry, it's a matter of just doing some detail painting, using the US Tank Crew for light straps and leather belt for the darker straps. And now we're going to be using the fine brush. And again, no need to water this down because otherwise it goes all over the place. So just use it neat straight from the bottle. Then we have some green stuff, antique gold, and some gunmetal Vallejo. And that will do the buckles depending on which colour you want to go for. So there we have it. That's how I do all of my stowage. Really pleased with how that all turned out. I'll just leave you with a few photos. Now with the dark earth, we're just going to be doing some work on the underneath. Here I'm just trying to do a light wash. I just really want to lay down a base coat just to blend everything in. And that will be applied all over the model, including all the engine parts and the bases and the axles, etc. Just so that I've got a uniform base to which I can then add on the oil work later. And I was really pleased with how that came out. And then what I did, as you can see, I just did a bit of a light mud dry brush just to highlight some of those raised areas. You'll also see some little bit of cam black German brown chipping in there as well. All about layering, adding on your layers, building up the time, impression of time on your model. And again, really pleased with how that was all looking. And there we have the underneath of the stowage at the back. So what I'm going to do now is just leave you with the final video detailing all of the stowage at the back, all of the acrylic work as well. And now we have a good base from which I can now do all of the oil work, which will go into more detail in the final reveal video. I'm still struggling. It's taking a long time to do this build, so it may well be a few weeks before we actually get to that point. So just like to say thank you very much indeed with sticking with this project. It's a lot of fun. I hope you're enjoying it as well. And massive thank you to all of my subscribers. I've also had a lot of new subscribers during this build, so thank you very much for joining and supporting the channel. And I wish you all the best and happy modeling.